It depends on the personnel. They are a tough team to beat. They are a hardworking team and disciplined. I agree with that. And it's a good team. It's a team that works hard, works together, and I think that's what makes them effective. Whether or not a coach can always impose his own personality on a group of individuals, it really depends on the group of individuals and how long a coach or a leader is leading a certain group.
But there is something to his personality. I mean, we all know what it is, and the team sort of seems to play with maybe a little bit of a free spirit, where maybe they're not as buttoned down as other teams, and maybe that's why they're successful.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I think they are quite disciplined and buttoned down. I think maybe it's how we both interpret that term, but I think I see a team who follows some specific rules and play within their means, and that is not free-spirited, how I would interpret the term.
Okay, and last question for me is, you have a short rest because of events at the stadium this weekend, and they were getting displaced. But for you guys, is 5 days okay? Do you wish you had a longer rest? And if Vancouver were to go to, say, MLS Cup, I mean, they got Taylor Swift coming. It just seems like the stadiums are hard to book this time of year.
I don't know about stadium bookings and all of that. I'll stay away from the business side of things, but the amount of rest days is not an issue for us. We've been doing that rhythm all season long. Actually, we've been working more off of 3 and 4 days and sometimes 2 days rest, so I don't see an issue there for us.
Okay.
And it's basically it is a knockout match, right? So
yeah,
the energy of knowing that it's do or die, you guys have seemed to thrive on that generally. I mean, you've had moments where that didn't work, but great success through knockout tournaments. Is that something that you can just conjure and sort of remember that you've had those moments? How do you pull that up in this particular instance?
To be honest, there's not a whole lot I need to do. I think the players are very aware of the situation. We have a very ambitious team, and if you have ambitions to win something or to go as far as you can in a tournament and play to your potential, then you show up for those moments. And this team has always responded in those moments, and I fully expect that on Friday.
There was a lot of talk about the playoff format, but now it's delivered you a Game 3 at home, which you earned because you're the higher seed. Do you see any now positives in this format? Has going through it, and last year you had the sweep, but now getting into that, does it change your perspective at all on what this is doing?
No, I think there's a better way to do it, but other people will decide that.
Obviously, the game would have been played differently if there was a 2-game and there was aggregate. The game in Vancouver, I imagine you would have managed differently. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't think you can take the score lines and say, oh, well, they would have done this if, then, and then. So it's just once you have a format and you agree to it, and it was that way from, well, since summertime, I think it was made public that we'll have the same format, then you understand the parameters and the rules, and you play to those. And so we are fully engaged and committed to this format, and understand that we need to be a little better than Vancouver Friday night.
Did they make the adjustments that precipitated that outcome, or did you guys feel like you didn't show up the way that you wanted to?
A little bit of both. I saw a little bit of both. They made some adjustments that made life for us difficult, although there were still solutions there, and we didn't come up with enough of them.
You trotted out the exact same lineup. They made some adjustments. Are you going to have the same group? Do you feel like you stick with what got you here?
For the most part, yeah. But there might be a couple of changes.
Steve, just with looking at that game, obviously, is there some coaching moments for you? As you said, this team knows what's up, or is this something where you don't bring it up too much?
No, there's plenty of moments. There's moments in wins and losses. I would be so brave and say there's probably the same amount of bad things that go on in victories than there are losses. In losses, those get maybe highlighted or magnified a little more because they're punished, and so we tend to look at those. But coaches, we don't have that luxury. We have to look at all mistakes and try to improve at all times. And there were a lot of good things that went on in Vancouver, which we also showed the guys. So, whether you win or lose, and if you look at the XG and the margins, it wasn't, in my particular eyes, a 3-0 game. We had chances to score. Didn't have our best day in the final third, but between the boxes, there was a lot of the same going on in Game 1. So Yeah, a lot of coaching moments that we used.
I was watching. I mean, on a second watch, you'd see like, all right, a lot of positive things. But is that something that you could also emphasize with there and say, look, you just continue to reaffirm these things, we'll get to where we need to get.
That's part of it. It's part of also looking at the negative and saying, hey, we have to be careful in these areas, careful with these movements, careful with these spaces. This is what Vancouver is good at, and so it's always finding the balance of both, of trying to break teams down, but also minimize your vulnerabilities.
Jesus, got about 15 minutes. How'd you see him? And moving forward, what kind of responsibility do you think he could take?
Yeah, we know what he can do. He's obviously one of our, over the past couple of years, top defenders, mentality-wise, and comes up with big plays and has been very good in big games. If we can continue to get him minutes and get some match fitness back, we'll be very happy with that.
Did you see them deal with Kike in the wingback spot better in Game 2 than they had? Because I think that they'd seen that before, obviously the first match. So, were there specific adjustments around that you think paid off for them?
Yeah, I mean the basic adjustment that was made was they defended the width a little better than they did in match game 1, and that was enough to throw us off a little bit. But again, it's impossible to cover every single space in the field, and so you prioritize certain spaces. They prioritized that defensively, and it paid off for them. And we didn't prioritize other spaces and areas, and we'll make our corrections, as will Vanny, and we'll see which team implements those ideas better. And sometimes it's not just about the ideas; it's also the implementation of those. And I think overall execution on the night wasn't great, and I think that's where we start first and foremost. I think if it's just improving our execution, then the ideas are secondary.
Being at home, I imagine, is a boost for you guys in terms of comfortability, execution. Like you're good at BMO Stadium. You know that coming in.
Yeah, we do.
You said last week maybe I misunderstood you, that you kind of have a relationship or a friendship with Zanny. You kind of like him. I saw you guys smiling on the sidelines a little bit.
I have a ton of respect for all the coaches in this league. Probably something I underestimated before I started coaching in this league, and how difficult it can be. And so, I approach every opposing coach with that respect that I would like, and that I also receive. And our conversations are entertaining. I like the guy. I particularly don't deal with situations like he does, but we're all different, and I think many people appreciate that we are different. But I have no problems with him. And again, for me, trying to win a game and do everything I can for LAFC in that moment has nothing to do with my relationship with the opposing coach.
I think a lot of journalists like him because he's just funny.
Sure.
Is that one of the bigger fields BC plays playing it?
I don't know the dimensions. I don't know. I think it looks bigger than it is because the field plays slow. But I don't know the dimensions. Nice.
Players had said coming off that Vancouver turf that it takes sometimes a little longer to recover. Have you seen that this week, or what's the status of the group in terms of health and fitness?
They look pretty sharp. Yeah, I think it's fine. Same for both teams.
Good. We'll go to Zoom here real quick. Andy, go ahead.
Thanks, Steve. With the possibility of penalties being obviously an option instead of extra time and penalties, I'm curious, how do you approach it as a coach? Is that something you guys look through in training, or is that more so game state where you see how the game goes and then kind of think about the guys that you might send into the spot?
No, we certainly cover that in training. I don't think it's necessary to train that for hours and hours. But certainly to give try to set it up as real as possible in training and recreate those moments at least once or twice for sure. Yeah, we cover that.
All right, Rodrigo, go ahead.
Hey Steve, how are you? I apologize if this question has been asked, but we saw Carlos didn't make the trip last week. Was that a coaching decision or fitness maybe issues following his debut after like 10 months?
Yeah, he's still playing catch up fitness wise. It's very, very difficult to to get yourself at a level where the rest of the team is right now. I think our players are 47, 48 games deep, and that's just nearly impossible to recreate in training. So it's a lot of catch up to do, and he used those days to catch up on some fitness. So these are situations or conversations that he and I have, and to try to find the best solution possible.
All right, go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, appreciate it. Steve, I wonder if you look back to the preparations for Game 2 and the preparations for this Game 3, have you seen a difference in the approach during training, not so much in tactics, but just in demeanor, mentality, Game 2 to this Game 3?
Yeah, I do. I see more in intensity. I see more focus. I see in some ways impatience, which I think are all great signs. I think you'll see a very focused LAFC who's going to do everything in their power to win this game Friday night.